Welcome to the Florida Divorce Podcast, your source for the information you need to successfully get through your divorce and into the next exciting chapter of life. Now, here's your host, Attorney Scott Kalish.
Hey, this is Attorney Scott Kalish. I am a divorce and family law attorney here in South Florida. Today I have a special guest on the podcast, my law partner, Dara. How's it going?
Hey everyone, how are you?
It's awesome that you're my second guest on the podcast. I'm excited to have you, and I think we have a really interesting topic for people, for the listeners today. We wanted to discuss the issue of passports. And, in a family law case, the issue of passports, come up a ton, depending upon the context, right, Dara?
Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time, and especially with minor children and school breaks coming around the corner and spring break, summer break. The question of passports and really travel at that is always an issue.
Yeah, so let's kind of walk through some scenarios, right? So people kind of could maybe like match up their situation and get the knowledge or information they need to properly like address, what they're facing. So let's say, two people are married and maybe they're separated. They're not divorced yet, but maybe they're separated, and that there are kids, and maybe someone wants to take a trip internationally, but something happened with the passport. Maybe they need to apply for a passport, or maybe the passport's expired and has to be renewed. So why don't you walk them through how we handle that situation?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, anytime that you have a minor child and a mother and a father, or really a mother and a mother, a father and a father, you're always going to have that question of both parties really being there to consent to the minor child obtaining a passport initially. The Department of State does a great job, and they actually, on their website, they have a form that either parent can fill out if they're unable to actually go to the office and obtain a passport with the other parent.
So, let's talk about it in the context of a divorce. Let's say that there's a pending divorce and there's a pending case, right? So two people are going through the divorce and there's kids and they want to go on a trip, but there's no court order and maybe one person is refusing to sign that paperwork. Yeah. What happens usually? So
if one parent is, unreasonably withholding their consent and not allowing the other parent to obtain a passport or renew a passport, what we would do is we would speak with the other party. And if they're unrepresented, we would speak to them directly. If they're represented, we would try to work it out between your attorney and ourselves. If that doesn't work, we'd have to file a motion with the court asking the court to order the other party to essentially agree to the issuance of a passport, and whether that's signing the form provided by the Department of State or them allowing the other parent, the judge would sign an order providing them with sole parental responsibility for the purpose of the issuance of a passport.
Yeah. And the same thing really goes for if, let's say, you have a closed divorce case and, the parenting plan addresses a passport, but again, it expired and maybe someone is just refusing to cooperate, right?
Yeah, definitely. And in our own parenting plans, we like to put provisions in there that say that, either party won't unreasonably withhold consent in obtaining a passport or renewing a passport because they do expire. And we would also put in there that, they are willing to cooperate with the signature of the notarized form that we just discussed. And at the end of the day, if they're still not willing to cooperate despite what's written in that parenting plan, yeah, we'd have to go back to court and file what's called a motion for contempt.
Sure. And, it's funny, a lot of people ask me, whether or not they are going to be allowed to, to travel outside of the United States, or if their spouse is going to be able to travel outside the United States. Some people aren't too comfortable with it. It's happened before, where a judge said no, that they can't travel. I mean, I had a recent one where, someone wasn't allowed to travel, but then I had one that, my very first one was about a year ago, where a judge said in Broward said no to I represented the husband. The wife said that the judge said to the husband that no, she can't go back to Russia because, what the judge really looked at was, did she have strong ties to the United States. And in that case, no, she had like a very entry level job. Like I think she had like a basic car, no house, like the kids were young, and she had made a threat in the past that she was gonna, abscond and take the kids to Russia and just go and live. And obviously, if anybody, keeps track of politics, they know that, hey, Russia's probably not gonna, honor our time sharing family law orders here. So the chances of getting the person back, is really tough, especially with a country like Russia.
Yeah, and I think that you raised a lot of great points. And really, oftentimes when this is presented to a judge, they're going to look to see where the parents are looking to travel to. If it's a country on the do not travel list, chances are a judge isn't going to say that the minor children or child can go with that parent to that country. But if a parent's just looking to travel and go on a cruise, let's say, with Carnival Cruise Line,
to like the Bahamas or something.
Yeah. The judge is going to say, okay, because, there's really there's not as much of a flight risk when you're on a cruise that, checks off what passengers arrive back on the ship.
Yeah. It's easier to sell, I think, to a judge like a cruise. It's a little bit more mild than saying, hey, I'm going to go to Russia or like, somewhere extreme or far away. Okay. Well, let's cover the last scenario, right? Let's cover the scenario when there are two unmarried people, right? They have a child, so there's no marriage. And let's say there's no paternity case. And let's just say mom wants to take the child, let's say, to Jamaica, right? Sure. How does that sort of, get accomplished?
Yeah. And actually this scenario,
it's pretty common
across, tons and tons of times. And we've had a huge influx of people asking this question because they're confused. They say,
dad's on the birth certificate.
Dad's on the birth certificate, but has no involvement in the child's life at all.
Maybe sometimes we get the call where like, hey, I don't even know where the dad is.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I don't understand why I can't travel if this person has never been involved in their life.
And the child could be 10 years old and not know the dad. I mean, we get that call from time to, I would say, once a month at least we get that call.
Yeah, we do. So in a case like that, what would happen is we wouldn't have to file an actual petition to establish paternity.
You can, though. Like, that's an option.
You can. But a lot of people, if we have a mother calling in, chances are they don't want the father to have time sharing in
if he's not involved.
Exactly. So what we would do is we would file a petition for a court order establishing, let's say the mother as a sole custodial parent. And legal guardian of the minor child for purposes of granting or issuing the passport.
Yeah.
And so what that does is it's a petition. So the other party would have to be served and put on notice that this case exists. And then we would merely schedule it for a hearing in front of the judge and present the evidence to the judge that this person has never been involved in the child's life. Mom's looking to travel on, a cruise to the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. And so we're asking that she be given that sole
right, or like authority to do it.
Yeah. So that she can obtain a passport without ever having to even contact, the other parent. And then what happens is once if the judge grants that petition, we would get an order back. And that order would be good to the Department of State. You would just present them with that order, and no questions would be asked at that point.
Yeah, it definitely happens. And that's obviously it's weird because obviously in the United States, 50 states, one federal government, the Department of State, is the federal government. So there's a weird interplay between the state government and the federal government. This might be different in another state, right? Yeah. But at least in Florida, like that's what we're seeing is required, right, from the federal government. And that's in Florida, like going through our family courts, like that's how we obtain the document necessary for the federal government to okay it and then issue the passport.
For sure. And I think that if I had any advice for the listeners, I would just say, if you're going to be going on a trip out of the country and you're in one of these situations, I would try to take care of it a few months in advance just to allow.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Listen, if you think that there might be a trip in the future at all, I say do it now, because like the passport office sometimes could take, weeks or months, and getting into court sometimes, and maybe even serving the dad and getting that process. I mean, it can take months. So, the sooner the better. There's nothing worse. I remember, I don't know, it was a few months ago, we got a call where, the guy wanted it done like within the next week. And I just said, I'm like, listen, you don't understand. Each judge has like 600-700 cases. It's probably very unlikely that we can get this done. I remember because he called about something about a cruise and his daughter had to get on the cruise. And I'm like, I can try, but I don't want to take your money and then it not be feasible given the judge's calendar, right? It might be impossible to get on the judge's calendar. So you got to really prepare in advance and get this stuff taken care of.
For sure. And even with just the passport renewal, if you see it going to be expiring, just, take the initiative and start it sooner rather than later.
It's a great point. But all right. Well, I appreciate you being my second guest on the podcast. It's been fun. I like talking about, these issues with people. I think it's a little bit more fun, than doing it by myself. But yeah, if you guys like the podcast, please give it a 5-star review wherever you're listening. If you have a question for me, right, about family law, about divorce, please let me know. You can email me at scott@kjlawfla.com. That's scott@kjlawfla.com. Also, something interesting recently, we're starting to create a Facebook group just on Florida divorce and family law. So I'll put a link in that description for you guys. If you guys are interested, you want to ask more questions, get in that Facebook group. We have other divorce experts in there too, like forensic accountants, right? We're all there to help and answer your questions and make sure that you have, the knowledge to tackle your issues. And lastly, hey, if you want to, reach out, if you're interested in possible representation, shoot me over an email or give us a call. I'd be open to the conversation. Thanks so much for listening. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Divorce Podcast. To learn the 10 secrets behind every successful divorce, visit floridadivorcepodcast.com. If you'd like Scott's help in your divorce case, go to kjlawfla.com.